Hello and welcome everyone to this week's episode of the podcast. This week is a special treat because we are talking all about silver metal clay, one of the amazing ways that we can make beautiful silver jewelry from home with relative ease. And it's also a really versatile material. There's so much we can do with it as jewelers. I believe that every jeweler should have a go at silver metal clay, whether you are a wax carver, a traditional silversmith type jeweler, a stone setter, or brand new to working in jewelry making, a beader. It's just a lot of fun, and there's so much you can do with this material. So I'm joined by the wonderful Anna Campbell, who is a fellow metal clay lover like me. Welcome, Anna.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very excited to share even more about this amazing material with people because yeah, it's a very different way of working with silver and with metal, and people can look at it and go, that can't be real." But it is. It's real. It's real metal. It's real silver.
It's definitely mind blowing at the beginning. I remember the first time I saw the process go from clay into like this dry kind of greenware stage where it's quite brittle and fragile. And then as soon as it's torch fired, it's solid hallmark quality silver. And I was just, my brain couldn't get around it straight away. I was like, is there some kind of trick here? What's going on? And then it was like, no, this is. And then you polish it and you finish it in that same way. And I was like, wow, how can I use this in the best way? And I think that's what a lot of metal clay artists have been doing over the years, is figuring out how we can use metal clay in a way that is unique to that material. Because generally speaking, as jewelers, we want to be as versatile as possible. We want to be able to provide our customers with what they're looking for in our own kind of unique styles. And the way that we can do that is use a variety of different materials and not stay too stuck in one medium. So I think metal clay opens up a lot of different possibilities, and people work in the clay and use that. Some people work in the clay and then get it cast, and have sterling silver pieces, particularly for rings and things like that. It can be combined with all different techniques. So I'm excited for new people to be introduced to this material and have a go. So if you're listening and thinking, I'd really like to give that a go, where do I start? Then this, what we're talking about today, is going to be really helpful for you because we have a free course. We ran this course last year and it was so popular and successful that we have decided to run it again this year. And it is called the 5 Days of Silver Metal Clay. Like I mentioned, it's free to sign up, which is awesome. And all of it's free. There's no trick. It's all like metal clay. There's no trick. It's all free. And it is 5 days in a row of courses and techniques and videos around how to work in silver metal clay, starting at the very beginning, but going into some detail, doing some stone setting, adding some gold, all sorts of things. And we make together as a community, and you can make as little or as much of it as you like. And we will be supporting you guys through that journey, especially if you are new to metal clay. And we're just going to have a lot of fun. It's going to be a metal clay themed week. And this starts next Monday, which is Monday, the 24th of February. It runs Monday to Friday, the 5 weeks. But of course, you can sign up and take it anytime you like. You'll have lifetime access after you sign up. Anna, what are you excited about for the 5 days of silver metal clay?
I think what we've tried to do is curate some really interesting projects that you can do as a beginner. I know sometimes people think, oh, they hear the word clay and think, oh, I need a kiln on something like that, and that's actually not true. You can heat this up with a jeweler's torch or a creme brulee torch if you've got one. You don't need to have that. So what I'm excited about is the fact that we've kind of put together lots of really interesting projects and things that are that are unique really to the way that metal clay works, because we work in metal clay, we work in silver, we work in gold, we work in wax, we do all of these things. And so what I love about metal clay are the things that metal clay is best for, if you see what I
Mm.
mean. It's the fact that it is like a clay. It is that we can, in the first day, we'll get into the projects, but we can stamp it and we can texture it and we can carve it, and there's just so much that can be done with it. So for these projects, I think they're great because they're really accessible for everybody. They're all filmed for you. You access them when you're ready to access them yourself. It's not a live course or anything like that. And it means you get to kind of dip your toe in and just try it.
Mm.
You get to just watch and just see how it works and think for yourself, oh, would I like to try this? So I think that's what I love about this particular week of metal clay, because it's that accessibility, I think.
Yes, absolutely. I think you're right. And even when it comes down to the toolkit, metal play is really quite accessible because you don't need a lot of tools. And what we teach in these classes as well is that you can work with, you do need a few things, but you can work with household objects as well, such as playing cards and a bit of olive oil. And there's lots of substitutes. And I think from the beginning of the metal play community, that's something I really loved about this kind of
Yeah,
community within a community, is that people are really passionate about, yes, we love tools and developing tools and having fun with them, but actually there's so much you can do with almost no tools, and finding alternatives that you might already have at home. So those of you that are perhaps further afield and it's not as easy for you to get hold of stuff, I think this might be quite a fun one for you to have a go with as well and find your own sort of creative solutions. And what I love about metal clay, and we talk about this a lot when we're talking about the diploma that we have in silver metal clay, is just how creative it is, because you're really starting with a blank canvas because it's clay. So it can be molded and shaped into anything. And sometimes that can be a little overwhelming because you're like, well, where do I even begin? But taking courses, I think, is a really good place to start because you follow along certain projects. And then you start to see, oh, I really like this style, or I don't like that style, or I like having stones, or I don't, or I want texture, or I want it more plain. So you start to find your own sort of way with the material as well. So I think, yeah, it's going to be a fun week. Should we walk through the week, just so that everybody knows what to expect? So, and just before we do, obviously, we are a community first and foremost. So we would love to see if you make any of these pieces, or even if you just have a go. Or if you are super keen and you do them all, I love that too. So make sure if you do get involved to tag us on Instagram at Jewels Academy, especially if you share your work in your stories and tag us. We will be sharing every day, as many as possible, probably all of them most days, of the pieces that get submitted into our stories. And likewise, if you want to see what other people have done, come and check out our stories on those days, because you'll be able to scroll through and see other jewelers' takes on the project. So I think that's a really nice part. And if you are Facebook focused, we'll also have bits and pieces inside the Facebook group where you can share and support each other, because that's half of the fun, I think, seeing what everyone else does too. So day one is the Make a Silver Name necklace. Anna, maybe you can share a bit about this and what people can expect from day one.
Yeah, this is such a lovely project taught by you. Um, and what I love about this is it really is very accessible for beginners. So it's there kind of teaching you a lot of the basics of, how do we get an even thickness with our clay? How do we texture it? How can we stamp it? That's one of the amazing things about clay, because it is like clay. We can really go for it, and you can get little rubber stamps, and little stamp set that you use in this one. And it's so lovely to be able to personalize. I think all jewelry is lovely, but personalized jewelry is such an exciting thing to be able to do, to be able to put dates or initials or names, and also birthstones and things like that. I think it's just it's a beginner's project, but I think there's so much you can do with it. As with everything, it's one of those things where once you've learned the basics, your brain will wear off in different directions, and you'll come up with other ways of using the same techniques.
Yeah, and it covers so much, this course, doesn't it? And that's why we put it right at the front of the week, because to be honest, with this, you could just be doing this for the week.
Yeah.
Doing name necklaces, like Anna said, you can do dates, you can put anything you want. We use these letter stamps, you can do it with your own engraving. But it's, again, we keep coming back to the accessibility, but it's such an accessible way of adding these things in, because to learn how to engrave is an amazing thing that is really awesome to do, but it requires a high level of skill. lots and lots of practice, lots of materials. And, to begin with, that's not always where we're going to start off. So, what's really nice is to be able to find kind of simple, easy ways that we can make pieces, realize our designs, because I think that's what motivates us to continue as a jeweler. When we do something, we make it looks really good, we're like, wow, I want to do it again, rather than setting ourselves up to fail, which can be the other end of the spectrum. So, and there's also stone setting in this course, I believe, if I remember rightly. So you'll learn how to set a birthstone, which is basically how to set any stone, but because it's silver name necklaces, that was kind of the theme. And stone setting in metal clay can be complex and it can be very simple. So we start with a really nice, simple one. And I think, again, not to always compare, but if you find stone setting quite daunting, like traditional stone setting, you're going to love stone setting in metal clay because it's clay. So you push the stone into the clay, which is awesome. There are a few considerations, a few things you need to think about, but it's a really nice, again, kind of way to get into working with stones, working with silver, so on and so forth. So that is how we start the week. Day 2 is making embellishments in silver clay. Do you want to share a little bit about that one, Anna?
Yeah, once again, it's another thing that's just such a fantastic thing about this material is that we can make our own little embellishments from little molds, from little shapes. You talk about lots and lots of different ways for making embellishments in this. And then we can kind of assemble them and bring them together to make a particular piece. Or it could be that you're making them for little charms. It's about those things that we can add into what we're already doing. If you are already a jeweler, you can make little embellishments and then you can use them and solder them onto things, which is fantastic. But if you haven't done any jewelry making before, you can still create something lovely and bring it together and make it into one piece. And it's your own design. And it's
Mm.
fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that metal clay does so well is it takes texture and detail really beautifully. So we can really utilize that, like you said, playing to the strengths. And in this sort of mini course video, we run through lots of different ways to create embellishments, like Anna said. And one of the ways that I love is using nail art molds, which is such a random thing. But obviously, nail art is very small because nails are very small. And there's so many online that you can find. I mean, you can find specific metal clay molds and you can make embellishments without any molds as well. But what's quite nice is they have such a range of different ones, and they're not expensive. And you can literally just like roll the clay into it and, scrape it off, let it dry, perhaps attach it to another piece. So again, just a really lovely way, especially for anyone who likes things like maybe botanical jewelry or adding little flowers, little leaves, little animals, the kind of things that would just be really tricky to do kind of any other way. You'd have to hand carve it. Is a really, really nice kind of detail. And again, we're talking about how we can make some really quite impressive pieces with beginner skills, which I think is quite an exciting thing to be able to do.
Yeah, that's true. I think in more traditional methods of, doing that, it's not impossible, but it's a bit more advanced. Whereas with metal clay, it's a little bit more beginners. Whereas it's kind of the other way around. We've talked about this before with rings. Like with metal clay, rings are a more advanced skill, but with traditional silversmithing, a lot of times it's a place that we start.
Mm.
So I think it's interesting. Again, it's about playing to the strengths of the material and getting you a chance to kind of give it a try and give it a go.
Yeah, and I think, like with anything, the more different materials that you can work with and try, the more you mature as a jeweler.
Yeah.
So you can't be excellent at everything because it's just not enough hours in the day. But to just be aware of and to have tried them, like this is why I love trying every technique, because even if I'm never going to do it again, I have so much a greater understanding of that material, of how it works. It's a bit like if you're an engineer or something like that, you need to understand all of the materials, even if you aren't going to use them all, because then you can select best what's going to work for different projects. And it's the same. We are like mini engineers. We engineer mini pieces. And the more that you guys have that breadth of knowledge, the better you're going to be able to make decisions about how to make things, how to realize your designs and be less restricted. I always felt quite restricted in my designs when I was learning jewelry, because I was like, well, I can cut sheet and I can cut wire and I can solder, but that's all I can do. So I need to, which is fine. You can still do loads with that. But then as you kind of like unlock these new areas where you can do more, it's like, oh, the design possibilities open up again. So I always think that's
Hmm.
quite an exciting part of the
Hmm.
process. So day 3 is a little bit different. Day 3, we are looking at something that people ask about all the time. So we're focusing on kind of the eco-friendly nature of working in silver metal clay. It is recycled silver, which is amazing. And there is zero waste. And the reason why there is zero waste is because we can reconstitute the clay. And people have asked this. We've been sharing a bit on social media about metal clay. Lots of people are asking, can you use it again if it dries out? What if you make something you don't like it? Like, how does the recycling process work? And Anna, you share about this. So do you want to talk a little bit about what they're going to learn on day 3?
Yes, this is one of my projects that we filmed, and what it is absolutely amazing that there's really is zero waste with the metal clay, because when we're sanding and filing it and little bits of the silver drop down, we can keep that. If you make something and it's dry and you look at it and you just go, I don't really like that, it's not the end. I tend to keep like a little pot and put all of the dust and all the little bits that I don't really like, put it aside. And then on this day, we're going to kind of take you through step by step how we reconstitute the clay and make it back into usable clay again. But basically, it is about grinding it down and adding tap water to it again and just mixing it up and making it back into clay. And it's just so fantastic that you can do that. There really is zero waste with it. And and that means, I think sometimes people really worry about it and they get, like you say, they get really concerned. It's like, oh, it's drying out, the clay is drying out. Well, we can add water and it's just tap water. There's nothing special going on there. And if it has dried out or if everything has gone wrong, we can make it back into really usable clay again. So we can kind of just breathe, just chill out. It's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just great to learn how to do it. And I think the great thing is, obviously, you can recycle any metal, which is amazing. But again, some metals are harder to recycle. There's a lot more of a process involved. Whereas what's great about metal clay is you can just have a tiny bit on your bench and make it into a bit of paste that you're using at the same time from your dust. So it's like, I feel like it's a very intuitive recycling process. It's all kind of
Yeah.
feels part of it. And because it is clay, it's a bit like when you're making cookies or something. You roll it out and then you're amazed how many bits you can get out of it. And then you get all the bits that's left over and roll it again. And you're like, oh, I can make more. When I'm making cookies with Harry, my son, I'm always like, how have we made like 20 cookies out of this? And who's going to eat them all in time? He's like, don't worry, I've got it covered, mommy. I can do that. So it's,
I think that's a really good point. Is sometimes if you've not used it before and you get a packet of clay and you might be looking at it and going, oh, there doesn't seem to be that much here. You will be really surprised at how much you could make from it. Like you said, it seems to be magical. You've got more and more and more, and we can use it right till the end. And then if you've just got a tiny, tiny little bit left, you can always add it to the next packet of clay. There really isn't any waste going on. So yeah, I think this is a really great project just to know how to do it, just to then feel a bit more confident about taking your time when you need to, to get it right.
yeah, absolutely. And like you said, certain pieces being like, actually, I don't want to buy this one. It's all right, but it's not the one that I want. So I'm going to reconstitute the clay, turn it back to clay again, and, start again. So, yeah. So that brings us on to day 4, which is where we start to add some gold into the mix. So I always love to add a bit of gold, even for beginners. And like we've said, we've talked a lot about beginners, but you can be intermediate or even advanced and just want to make some pieces for a week and be like, I'll do my own take on it. I'll make it more advanced. I know when we do the 10 days of silver, which we did earlier in the year, and we tend to do each year, some people join it and they know how to do all the techniques, but they just want to get into making again. And I think these projects are also great for that, of just saying, do you know what? I've done a lot of other stuff. if you're anything like me, you've done a lot of other stuff and you're ready to just have a week of creativity and kind of focusing a bit more time on your making. Um, so this is a really, again, kind of easy way to start adding gold to your work. And you're probably thinking gold is incredibly expensive. There's no way I'm going to manage that. But it's the also probably most affordable way that you can do it, because all you need is one individual teeny tiny casting grain, and it can be a 9 carat, so it's absolutely fine, or any carat that you can get hold of. So casting grain is like little tiny granules of gold which you can buy, and usually it's used for casting. The casting process is you get lots of them together, you melt them down, and you pour it into some sort of mold that you've made for casting. But when we use it like this, it's just like a little nugget. And this is a really fun project, and I made it a little while ago, and it's really satisfying because you make a little droplet with the clay, and then you literally pop your golden nugget in, and it's a bit like a stone setting. You treat it in the same sort of way, but it's a lovely way to add that kind of element of gold, and also get you thinking about, for your customers, if you are starting to think about selling your pieces, or perhaps you already are making and selling pieces, accessible and affordable ways to add gold to your work without it being hundreds of pounds or even like an extra 50 pounds. But how can we spend maybe like £10 and get a touch of gold in? KMBoo is another way of this, which isn't in these 5 days, but we also teach that online. So there are ways, as the price of gold increases, to still have touches of that in your work if it's something that's important to you. And it's just fun. It's fun to have the mixed metals as well. What do you think about this
Yeah.
one, Anna?
Yeah, I was just going to say that actually. I've been seeing a few articles recently about the resurgence of mixed metal pieces, and how popular they are at the moment. And as you say, it's a really lovely way to just add that, elevates your design a little bit by adding that little bit of gold in. Um, but again, it's not a complicated way of adding gold. It's not sending something away for gold plating, and it really is a case of just pushing the gold into the silver, which is fabulous. So good that we can do it so easily, and it can be so accessible for a beginner to do. Yes, I love this little project because, like you say, it's like a little drop
Mhm.
with your little gold nugget in, and it's such a sweet design. But once again, you take that where you want to go with it. So if you are a bit more advanced, you learn the technique, and you then just take it and do your own design and do your own take on it. So yeah, this is a really great project.
Absolutely. So that brings us on to day 5. And day 5 is all about how to hand finish and polish your piece. Because once we've done all this making, we've been really focusing on the metal clay aspect, the making of the piece, the firing, the creating, the stone setting, the gold. But we want to make sure our pieces are lovely and shiny and beautiful at the end. And often we say that it takes as long to polish and finish a piece as it does to make the piece. So it's something that really deserves time and energy. I love finishing and polishing pieces. I find it so satisfying. I know it can be, it depends what you're working with. It can be challenging, it can be frustrating, but I think the process of gradually working through to get to that really high shine, there's nothing quite like it. And then the end, you're like, wow, this is super shiny and I made it and it looks super professional. And I always say the difference between a kind of amateur piece and a professional piece is the finish. So we like to focus on the finish as well. So day 5 is about how to hand polish and how to get those kind of mirror finishes should you want them. Not every piece needs to be a mirror finish, but looking at your finishes, and making sure that you feel confident that you can get the finish that you want on your pieces. So looking forward to kind of exploring that. And this is important, isn't it, with any jewelry making, Anna?
Yeah, it is. And again, I love this particular way that we're showing it because, we have a whole course on polishing and finishing, and we know there's lots of different ways that you can do it and different equipment you can buy and all of this. But actually, when in this one, you do this one as well, I think. You teach this one, and it's using the polishing papers, and it's just showing how to do something that is just very, very simple without that requirement for having particular types of equipment or anything like that. So it's that accessibility once again, but it is still about getting a really great result
Mm.
on your pieces. So it's not about saying, oh, you just can't do it because you don't have this polisher or that, this or that. It's about saying like, okay, this is how we hand polish. And hand polishing is a great thing to do while you're listening to a podcast like ours, or watching something on TV, or watching a box set, or listening to an audiobook. It's one of those like really, you can get really kind of mindful about it.
Mm.
You can really just go for it, can't you? And just it's that finishing touch, as you said, that makes it much more of a professional look.
Absolutely. And I think you touched on something really important there as well, is that we don't need, as we've been saying, all the tools. And even some of us who've got the tools, it's good to remember how to do it without them, because you don't want to be too tool reliant. Because what if one day the tool's not working and you've got a commission ready the next day? And, it's so important for us to keep those like grounding foundation skills, I think. Also, I love teaching hand polishing, because I think if you know how to hand polish a piece, you really experience every every bit of the piece. You see it kind of come to its final fruition. Then if you do
Yeah.
move on to machine polishing, you just have that understanding where you know what you need to do. So absolutely. And this is something that just requires a few little papers, like nothing, almost nothing in terms of toolage and machinery. um, and speaking of tools and materials, there is a complete list. Like we said, there's not loads that you need. A lot of it's stuff like a dish and some water and some olive oil. So stuff that you can literally find around the house, a few things you might need to get hold of. But you have 1 week until we start. So if you have a look at that list today, order any bits that you need. Should you need any bits, maybe just order some clay if that's what you need, and get it ready so that come Monday next week, we can make together. And we'll also be sharing bits and pieces over on Instagram, like I said. So do come and have a look over there too. But definitely have a watch of the videos. They're great kind of content, lots of value included in there, tons of tips and things that you'll learn about silver metal plate. Even if you're already making, I would say have a look at it. It's a free
Mhm.
course of 5 days, so you might as well. And we all do things a little bit differently, so it's quite nice to see how someone else might do it. And those of you that enjoy the course, have a look at some of the wider courses that we have. We have other courses on metal clay that you can sign up for. We do a 1-year whole diploma in silver metal clay, which we are so excited about. And we've been running it this year. We're running it again next year. And that really gets us through from kind of beginner all the way to advanced. And again, people from all over the world join us for that. Some people who've never made anything before, other people who've been making metal clay or other jewelry for a while and just really want to explore this material and see what they can do with it, and develop those more kind of complex skills. So it's a whole world that you can get into.
Mhm. Absolutely. I adore the metal clay world just generally. It is a world in itself. It's a small world, and that's why it's a very connected world, I think.
Mm.
And I think going back to what you were saying about right at the beginning about the tools and things, I think when the material was first coming about, people we didn't have anyone who could make those tools for us, so people just used what they had. And I just think all of that kind of using what you have still kind of permeates through the world of metal clay. And yeah, so it's definitely worth stepping into and just seeing if you enjoy it as well.
Absolutely. Awesome. Okay. Well, hopefully, we have convinced you to come and have a play with us and be creative. And I think it's also quite a good stress relief, metal play, because it's just, you just put some music on in the background or a podcast, like you said, Anna. You can design, you can make your pieces, and there are natural breaks in the process as well where you need things to dry and stuff like that. So I always love teaching the metal play classes, because I just feel like it's a really chill productive day, if that makes sense. So it's
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's something that's going to be enjoyable. We're going to have a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see what everyone makes as well. I love seeing what you guys make with these projects, because everyone has their own sort of different style and take on them. Anna, thank you so much for coming and sharing about the program, and thank you for sharing inside the program as well with the day 3. If people don't know you, which I just can't imagine that that's possible anymore. But if they don't know you, or they want to get to know you a bit more because you teach classes as well, do you want to share a bit about where they can come and find you and say hi online?
Yeah, Yeah, definitely worth coming and finding me. Instagram's the place I like to hang out. So at Jewellery School Scott on Instagram is the best place to see all my metal clay goodies and fun.
Awesome. Great. All right. Well, guys, have a wonderful time with this. And we'll see you back here next week for the podcast and also for some making of silver metal clay pieces. So until then, have a wonderful week and bye for now.